Thank you. What's up, guys? Everyone? All right, what will help me a ton today? I'm excited to be here. I was excited to be able to come in. I love being both on this spot as well as in your seat, learning from different voices, learning from different things. So my goal of today is hopefully bring some tactical things in that you guys can all take back to your businesses, but also just some more emotional things that you could take, and if you internalize them as an individual, I think it will help you in your overall growth in the business you're in now and whatever rocks and turns that your career ends up taking. Mine has taken several in the last, it's really been about 10 years now, from leaving BYU to ending up in Southern Utah. I grew up in Tennessee. My dad was in the Army, still is. So we moved every 2 to 3 years. So this is the longest that I've ever actually been somewhere, is being in Cedar for the last 3 years. And so a lot of changes, a lot of moves, came here for a job, now own my own things, as you can tell, a bunch of different things, mostly centered around the health and wellness space right now, but hopefully in the next year we'll start pivoting outside of that as well. But in order for us, I think, to get the most out of today, if you guys will be interactive, we're going to use our books that we got a little bit. Just write some stuff down as we go, because I think that will help us all internalize it, learn, and then just be able to take it back. So my first question to you guys is, let's get 1 or 2 comments. What's the biggest takeaway that you've had in the last 2 months? Give me an idea of kind of what you guys are taking away. Don't everyone speak at once. This is good. This is a low barrier of entry for me that we've learned nothing.
Last month I really liked where she talked about it's all in the details, that if we're not really looking at what our plans are and how we're going to protect companies in our personal space, that we can really set ourselves up for a bad ending.
Love it. Love it. Okay, let's get one more. What's one more takeaway that we've had?
I was just going to mention, along with the details, is sometimes we want to just leave that all up to like an HR department, right, to just take care of all that stuff for us when it comes to training, employee hiring, stuff like that. But it's everybody's responsibility, really, to look out for the culture, the safety of the employees that you bring on, and also for your customers as well.
Love it. One of the things we'll talk about here in a moment actually is just ownership. How do you create ownership within roles? And as we go and create a business that has a lot of different parts. Does anybody work with a business raise your hand if it's under 10 employees? Anybody under 10? A couple of us, 10 to 20? 20 to 30? Good. Over 50? Awesome. Over 100? Over 200? Nice. We got one left standing. Cool. What are you, 205? Awesome. Okay, so we have a really wide spread in this room. My goal in this presentation was that if you could take principles from it, it will apply to whether you're a 3-person show, a 1-person show, or a 300-person show. So it will all tie into where we're going. How do we create trust? How do we create ownership? And how do we move things through a company? As we get complex and you add more people into it, that becomes a little bit more difficult, right? Then when you have not as many people, everybody's kind of doing a piece of everything, which creates some communication gaps. And so the first thing I want to talk about is, how do we identify what we should be working on in our role inside of our business? So you go through, I'll switch these slides as we go. I'm going to come back to that quote after we go through this. Has anybody seen this picture before? What is it? Who could tell us what it is? Yes.
I actually just read a book that talked about this, called Stress Less, Accomplish More. If you do all the simple stuff in the first picture, you're not going to be able to fit the big things, your rocks, into your jar. So if you put your most important things at the bottom, am I making sense?
Yeah.
You put your important
I'll
things at the
regurgitate it
bottom.
too. Okay, beautiful. All right, so we've probably all heard this analogy or this story before, where you have a jar and you've got a sand, pebbles, and rocks sitting next to it. And so if you go to the jar and you go in and you put the little things in first, so you put the sand, then you put the pebbles, then you get the rocks, you end up with this one on the right where nothing fits. Does anybody ever feel like this in their personal life or in their job? Yes, say aye. Aye. All right, that's my Tony Robbins hurrah for the day, all right? All right. So we've got that. We all feel like this in our personal life, in our day-to-day with our job. We get that way. And so I've heard this analogy probably since I was 10, 11, 12, but I didn't start connecting the dots to how it can work in my life and my business until about 2 years ago. And I start to feel like stressed. I do a lot of things. My wife continually yells at me because I overschedule things. She's flying to Puerto Rico right now. I'm supposed to be on a flight. I got to move mine tomorrow so that I could be here today, but that's like what my daily life kind of looks like because I'm constantly trying to see how many rocks that I could put in. But it also led to a lot of stress, chaos, and me just not performing at the level that I can until I started to understand this principle and go through it. So we're going to go through it today together. And the first thing that we have to identify with it is what are the big rocks? And so I want you guys to draw a line, get a blank page inside of your notebook, draw a line right down the middle for me. Perfect. Okay, on the left-hand side, you're going to put personal. On the right-hand side, you're going to put your work. I think to get the most out of this, I am a really big believer in work-life integration, not necessarily balance. Sometimes when we talk about balance, it's like I spend 8 hours working, I should spend 8 hours with my family and play. That is not the case, right? I see a lot of heads shaking like that's not it, right? And so a lot of times for me, I may end up spending 24 hours with my kids in a 2-week span, but then I'm going in and working for 2 weeks straight with really just an hour of quality time. So if I look at that scale on a balance, it doesn't really equal out. And so I really like the word integration. And so if you could start to figure out how to integrate your personal life with your work life, I think you'll see stress and your productivity start to shoot up. So that's why we're going to do both. So the first thing, we've got those 2 columns set up. I want you to write at the top a subheading of the big rocks. So the big rocks, these are the most important things that we have to get done on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis to move our company and our lives in the direction that we want to go. All right, so we're going to take about a minute, and I want you guys to write down the big rocks that you have in your life for both your personal life and your work life. I've got a timer on my watch, 1 minute, 3, 2, 1, go. Good, 20 more seconds. I see pens moving, that's good. If you don't finish, that's all right. You can go back later. Five, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Okay, I'd like to get 2 of each, 2 personal and 2 work life. Let's get some more voices to start talking. You've all written them down, so I know there's things on the paper. Somebody give me a big rock in their work life. Yes?
I'm hiring for a manager position within my team right now.
Perfect. So hiring a manager. Wonderful. What's another big rock? Yep.
Training.
Training? What kind of training?
Just SOPs, standard operating procedures.
Awesome. Get everything set up and ready to roll. Okay, cool. Let's get 2 for our personal life. Yeah. Finances. Getting those in order. Kind of feel like they're a mess right now. Okay. One more. Wife? Good one. Good man. Happy wife, happy life. Good laugh. Good man. All right. So we've got this list here. So we know that if things are out of order in these big rocks, everything else is going to go to chaos. Okay? And so now you're starting to see an organization of these are things I have to get done. If your wife doesn't feel cared for, what happens to everything else? Shot, right? It's all shot. Right? I think we all know that, making sure our spouse or family are taken care of. So now you have your big rocks in place. So these are the things that as we go in and as we plan, and I want you to think about planning on a weekly, quarterly, and yearly basis. This can be any of those. I'll tell you how we do this inside of our organizations and as well as myself personally when we get through all of them. But you have to get these things done. And so when you think about them top of mind, you put them down first, then those things are going to start to get done. All right, let's move into the pebbles. So we're going to do the same exercise. Obviously, we've got 2 more, pebbles and rocks, or pebbles and sand. So now let's go through, draw a little line underneath your rocks, leave some space so you can come back in underneath, and let's write those pebbles down. What are the pebbles in our life that still have to be done, but come in under importance underneath those rocks? Good, about 20 seconds. Three, two, one. Awesome, let's get one of each. I'll pull from this side. What's our work? Somebody give me a work pebble. And then give us a little explanation of why you think it's a pebble.
Performance reviews.
Okay.
I think that they're a pebble because I feel like they're kind of important.
Okay,
Right? It's
perfect.
important that you're reviewing them and everything, but I don't feel like it's a major...
It's not a big rock.
Right.
Right. Okay, and here's something really important to understand about pebbles. Pebbles are things that can really quickly turn into rocks. Can performance reviews take over your whole mind and take over the whole week? They have the ability to do that, right? And so a lot of times as we're going through our lives and our organizations, we take these sands and these pebbles and we turn them metaphorically into big rocks when they really don't need to be. And so it becomes really important that we start understanding, and we're going to talk about communication shortly, on how do we communicate about what is what, who deals with what, so that I don't have an entire team that's getting paid to go and do work that's working on sand when they really need to be working on pebbles and rocks. Okay, personal life. What's a personal life pebble? Cordell, you already talked. Sorry. Yeah.
House and yard.
Okay, house in the yard.
That's what I was going to say, fixing things around the house.
Fixing things in.
Anything that I has to get done.
Okay. What happens if stuff in these pebbles never get done?
Turn into problems.
It's a problem, right? The yard overgrows. It looks terrible. Your performance reviews never get done, and people don't know what they need to fix. They don't get on the right track. Everything turns into a mess. So are pebbles important? Yeah, they got to be done, but they got to be done in the right order. Okay? All right, let's go to sand. Last little part, go down, write down your sands. Work and personal life. What are the little sands that still need to be taken care of, but are at the bottom of the totem pole? Good, almost there, 20 seconds. Perfect. Okay, who could tell us one sand? What's a sand item? Yeah.
Work related here. I think this one is relatable for all of us here. Helping other people with their projects. It's
Okay.
not particularly something that you have to get done, but sometimes we get stuck on those and take a lot of time.
Yeah, you end up doing other people's work as opposed to your work. How effective is that for an organization overall? 0, right? And so we could go through, I'm sure, several other of these where we start to see, whereas we get into these, especially the sand level things, they really end up becoming distractions that pull away from the rocks and pebbles that actually steer the ship of the organization in the direction that it wants to go. And so you see too many, I mentioned earlier that right now, I consult with, it's almost 100 small business owners, so doing anywhere under $5 million in revenue. And as simple as these ideas seem to be, this is one of the things that they get caught up in so much, is we get these little sands and these little pebbles that end up becoming way blown out of proportion, and now their organization, if we think of it as a ship, is headed in the wrong direction because we just focused on the right things. We took our attention, we took our detail, we took our people, and we were too worried about helping everybody else around us get their work done that ours didn't get done. And there's a compounding effect in all of this that ends up getting you on the wrong path. Okay? Question to you: in different roles and levels of the organization, are there different rocks, pebbles, and sands? Yes. Okay? And so inside of this room, we have different levels of a management team, different people at different executive levels, right? And so are your pebbles and rocks going to be different than the owner of your business? Should they be? Yes, 100%, okay? And so this is a very fluid thing, which is why we have to keep checking back up and in on it, because it's going to change. As you grow in the organization, as the organization pivots, these become different, and you have to understand. Some of the best mentorship advice I ever got was, if I want to move up in an organization and I want to be a rock star. How many of you guys would like to be a rock star in your organization? Yeah, right? How many of you guys like to make more money? Yeah, right? More time off, better benefits, more money. It all sounds right. Okay, we all want that, so we agree with there. In order to get that, you have to excel, right? We're still all in agreement. One of the best ways that I've been able to conceptualize what excelling inside of an organization means is I have to understand inside of my role, what are the rocks, pebbles, and sand that I'm responsible for, and crush it. But if I can go look at the owner or the role that I want, understand what their rocks and pebbles are, and then associate my role to help them accomplish what their rocks are, all of a sudden you just became a rock star. You guys following me on that? Because now, it's not easy, but it's easier to find somebody inside an organization that can manage where they're at. But if you could start to work above the level, it can be recognized really quickly. Okay? And so you have to be able to identify what yours are, identify where you want to be and what their rocks or pebbles are, and then start moving your work so that you can work at that level. Okay? You guys follow me there? Any questions on that? It's a really simple thing, but it has changed the way I think. And when I look at a business and levels of organization, how I get there, and everyone that I've been able to work with from a managerial and middle manager level that can start to think like those executives and think like the owner and the rocks they need moved, all of a sudden they start moving up in the company and they start to move the entire company forward. Example of this inside one of my, the wrong arrows. Okay, SugarWOD, nobody knows what this is, but this is an app that we use inside of our fitness business. And so when I moved to Cedar City to get my MBA. The goal was to be here for about a year, move away, and then either start my own company or work for one of the big consulting firms. I had been here about 2 weeks. I walked into CrossFit Cedar City. I met the owner. I didn't really like the gym, and so then I bought the gym within about 2 months. And so kind of fell in our lap, and then we just ended up falling in love with Cedar City and raising our family here, and so we stayed. And so I was fairly young. I was 25 when I bought that business. And so I had people that were already in place working for us, and I was trying to manage, how do I flip everything? How do I grow this business? It was kind of dying. It needed a lot of help. And so we came in, and I had a guy that was the manager, and I say that with quotations because he really did a lot. There were like 3 of us, and so we were all kind of running around with our chicken with our heads cut off, trying to get everything done. And SugarWOD was an example that he loved SugarWOD. And what SugarWOD did is it takes all of our clients, it puts them into this app, and then it manages their workouts, their progress, so that we can go in and see them. We end up paying per person that's inside of SugarWOD. It's like 50 cents a person at the end of the day. He would spend 3 to 4 hours a week making sure that SugarWOD was up to date. Important? Yes. But we have a lot of people that jump in, do our workouts. And so if we have 200 members, we'd probably have 275 people at any one time trying to get into our SugarWOD app. And so he's spending 3 to 4 hours a week going through, deleting people, making sure it works, and where business is not growing. With the information I've given you, what level do you think SugarWOD was to me? It was sand, right? I could care less about the 50 cents that we're spending on people that are freeloading off of our workouts. I could care less. But he had a hard time bridging that gap to see that SugarWOD was a rock to him. It didn't matter in our organization. And so I left having poor leadership and being frustrated at him for 3 months that I'm paying him to go spend time in the SugarWOD app that doesn't move our business at all. And then as soon as I was able to have a conversation with him, be able to show him that this is really just a stand, stop worrying about it. Spend a half an hour a month on it and then let's move on. It clicked, we moved on. He started working on the rocks that I wanted us to be working on. The business started to move on again, right? He became so much more valuable to the organization once he understood and we were able to communicate from this level to this level and back and forth about what are the big rocks in the business, okay? So there's an example of how that can work and how you can just waste a lot of time working on stuff that doesn't move the business forward at all, okay? Any questions so far on this? How to implement this? Yeah.
So do they have to pretty much come up with the rocks, pebbles, and sand on their own, or do you pretty much just tell them what they are? And from a management standpoint, do you point them out, or do you have to have them figure it out on their own for them to be effective?
Mixture of both. So we're going to talk about communication here, which I think will answer your question. If I don't answer it, come back to it. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. When we plan, and I plan personally, we do it on a yearly, quarterly, monthly, and weekly basis. Every single Sunday, I plan out my week in business and personal. This is how it starts. I write my big rocks, my pebbles, and my sand. I take those from a notebook, I transfer it to my Google Calendar, and I assign a time for when I will be focused on all the tasks to make sure that those get done. In every weekly, monthly, and quarterly meeting that we have, we talk about it just like this. We have big rocks, pebbles, and sand. We identify what they are, and then we identify the tasks necessary to go out and achieve those. And that's how we do it inside of ours. I talked about my SugarWOD example. The lack there was in communication, right? And then implementation of the steps. The exercise we just did, you can write these on the paper. Was it hard? It's not that hard, right? We all just did it in a matter of about 5 minutes. But taking this into an actual organization with 300 to 205 employees can become very difficult really quickly and can become too complex. And so I want to talk about a communication strategy that I actually learned from a book called Fierce Conversations. Has anybody read Fierce Conversations? Anyone? Okay. Highly, highly recommend Fierce Conversations. Does anybody feel like who would be scared to death to do what I'm doing right now? Anybody? Yes? A couple of you? Okay, cool. I love this, so I'm not scared of it. But there are other conversations that I am terrified to have. Some of them are with my wife sometimes. Some of them are hard conversations with employees. And so this book, Fierce Conversations, highly recommended. It'll give you some tools necessary to go in and have conversations that you need to have. And as soon as you can start having those hard conversations, I guarantee you will see growth both professionally and personally. But let's dive into how do you take these things and start communicating them well and at a level that you want. Just hit this quote really quickly. I loved it. It kind of summarizes where we're at. Don't prioritize what's on your schedule, but schedule your priorities. And so a lot of us, right, we make our weekly schedule, we get organized, and we throw everything on there, and then we start to decide what's important. If you flip it, understand what the rocks are, schedule the rocks first, schedule the pebbles next, then schedule the sand, you end up doing only the important things and the little things fall by the wayside. Okay, how you communicate, we'll make this how you do it. Here's how you do it, okay? So again, kind of prefacing this off of Fierce Conversations, but if you take a tree, you've got 4 parts to a tree. You've got the root level, the trunk, the branches, and the leaves. Each one of these is going to be a different level of communication. Which one is the strongest? The roots, right? So that's going to be where our more important decisions are being made, and we're going to dive into each one of these a little bit deeper. Getting to where you're at those leaf decisions, they're kind of blowing away. They're not as important to the health of the tree in general. So we're going to start at the outside. We're going to work our way all the way back in to those roots. So at the very top, outside decisions, you have leaf level decisions. There's 3 things that you can do at this level. And so you can make a decision, act on that decision, and you don't report that decision to anyone. Okay? Can anyone think of something inside of their organization right now that would be they completely own that realm? They can make a decision. They don't have to talk to anybody about the decision. They can own it inside of their role. You give me an example of a leaf decision in your business. Yeah.
I'm in sales.
Perfect.
Day-to-day basis, I negotiate prices, and that's all up to me.
Beautiful. So you have this price structure, and you have freedom inside of that price. You can go decide on it.
Right.
And do you have to report back and ask and say, hey, can I charge 5 instead of 7?
Over a certain amount, if it's a little too big of a discount, you have to get it approved, but
Okay.
most of the time, no.
Perfect. So anything that's within your realm to just make the decision and not report back, that's going to be a leaf level decision. Okay. Let's go down. Your example leads us straight into the next step, which are going to be our branch level decisions. This is where you make a decision, act on that decision, but you report back to that. So if I take the sales example, maybe I'm stretching the limits I've been able to give a little bit. I know our owner is going to be okay if I give it at $10 instead of 12, right? But I'm going to need to report back to that because it's kind of an anomaly and out of the norm. All right? And so the only difference as we move in from leaf into branch is now you're reporting back to someone that you've made that decision. You guys see the difference here? Head nods, good. I see a lot of pens writing, good. I'll give you a second.
While we're waiting, since you brought it up, you plan out your week.
Yeah.
Was Costa Rica a pebble or a rock?
It was a pebble in mine, and it was a rock in my wife's. This was a rock in mine and a pebble in hers. Fair, right?
I like how you've got in a predetermined report on there, because I think like people coming back and reporting all the time could just distract you from what you're doing right now. So having a predetermined time that these reports come in is nice.
Love it. I hate reports. I hate meetings and I hate reports. I also hate performance reviews. And so if I don't have them set, and I only want to get information that I really want. How many of you guys have been in meetings that are just totally, you don't need them? Everyone, right? Everyone's like sheepishly like, oh yeah, I hate those meetings, right? How many of you guys feel like you write reports that nobody reads? Okay? So as you're in your organization, and I'm not speaking for anyone's organization in here, but I think as a manager and as owner, you really start looking at those things of, why do we have these reports? Why do we have these sections of these reports? Why do we do them? Is anybody even looking at them? I've written reports before for weeks. When I used to work at the crisis center, reports all day. And a lot of it was for legal issues, right? Like we were in custody of these kids. And so everything that we had to do, we had to report. So there was a meaning to it. But there were reports that I would write to the owner, and it went probably 7 months, and I had never heard anything back from the report. So it's like, I'm going to do an experiment. I didn't write the report for the next 6 months. He didn't notice for 6 months that I wasn't writing the report. So how good do I feel about wasting my time to do that report? Terrible, right? Has anybody been there? Some heads nodding, right? And so I agree. That is why the predetermined word, I'm glad you pointed that out. Because when you have reports, when you have communication cycles that are already in there about important things, then everybody buys into them, right? And it builds trust that I'm actually turning things in that my owner or my manager wants, and I'm getting things back from my people that they know that I actually care about. Don't have people write reports just to write reports, unless you've got to have them on the paper for legal reasons. Okay, do we understand the branch level decisions? Okay. Do you see the difference? And just make sure, I know I hit it already, but between things that need to be reported and things that don't. Okay, perfect. All right, now we're getting to the trunk. We're getting into some of the meat of it. And so this is where you, inside of your role, you can make a decision. You report that decision back to management before you take action. Okay? So these are things where You need some kind of approval or a head nod before you go out and act on that decision. So the difference between branch and trunk is just in that branch, you can take the action and then report. Inside of a trunk level, you need to go have a conversation about it, but then you go out and act and you own the action. Can anyone think of a trunk level decision inside of their organization?
Expenditures over $3,000.
Beautiful, perfect, okay? So expenditures under $3,000 are gonna be at the higher level, right? As soon as we hit the threshold of 3,000, now we need to have a conversation about it and then you can take action. It's a perfect example of what this type of decision should be. Okay, last level, we're getting into this root level decision. This is where you make decisions together with the executive and leadership team. You create and identify an action plan together. If we look at volume of number of decisions made at each level, which, hypothetically speaking, should be the highest volume of decisions? Leaf. Why? Say it again.
They're day to day.
Day to day, maybe monotonous.
Common sense.
Common sense, not so common. Okay, good. I like those answers. Jeff Bezos, anybody know who he is? Yeah, right? Pretty smart guy, pretty wealthy guy, fairly successful. I read something from him that he only makes 2 decisions a day, right? So he sets out his day that he is only making these decisions because you get decision fatigue. And you go through and you start to be clouded by these decisions that can be leaf or sand level. And if you should be moving the ship of your organization and be running it as a high-level manager or owner, and you spend all your time up here at sand and leaf, do you have the time and energy to go really move the roots? You don't have it, right? And so really giving some ownership to your employees and your people and your teams so that you can focus on things that are going to move your department and your organization in the way that you want it to do. Because far too many times, if you guys ever heard the term that you're working in the business and not on the business. And so a lot of times we just get focused, we're working in it so much. Like we're doing the day-to-day, the monotonous stuff. And then we wake up 6 months later and it's like, where are our quarterly goals? Where's our yearly goals? I have no idea. We don't even know if we're on track for those because we spent so much time focused at the higher level. Okay? Any questions so far? Does this help take those rock, sand, and pebble and then move them into how to communicate them with your team? All right. Exercise time with your team. We're not going to do this in here. But every time we go into an organization or I repivot where we're going, we spend 30 days with a big whiteboard. And we write root, trunk, branch, and leaf. And every decision that gets made, we write it on the whiteboard where it's at. And sometimes it moves back and forth. And then at the end of the 30 days, we look at the whiteboard and we say, all right, how many of these branch need to be a leaf ASAP? How many root really need to be in trunk? And then we go through it. Right now, we're trying to do that every quarter inside of our organizations to make sure that we're always moving in the right direction. And then what I've found is if you look at it over that 30-day time period, you start to see that board kind of come alive. And you can do it in Google Sheets, you can do it on a board. You start to see things move. And what I've always seen is you start to see things that I think they should be a leaf level, and my team, they're not leaf levels because they're consistently reporting back and they don't feel like they have ownership over what they can actually control. And so there's a gap in that communication. The sugar watt example is my fault because I didn't communicate that that needs to be a leaf level and I don't want to hear about it, right? You need to own that. How many people love it inside of their job when you can own it and you know you're not having somebody watch your back and you own the job? Do you perform better or worse? Better, right? We all want that. We want to be able to own that. And so having these cycles open will allow us to do so. Okay, I'll go through these slides a little bit quickly, but what I've found, just like we were just talking with ownership, is ownership in action creates trust, which empowers the organization to be more productive, efficient, and grow, which is what I would say we all want, right? We all want to make more money. We all want to have more time off. We all want to have better jobs, right? We all want that. If you can implement these things, then you can go in and find that for you and for your people. How many people love when they can promote somebody on their team? It's a good feeling, huh? When you can have them come in and own something, and then you get to move them throughout the organization, which then moves you up as well, right? Okay. Questions so far? I'm coming close. All right. How many of you guys want to dominate where you are and in your workspace? Yep, right, we all want to own it. We've talked about that before. So I'm just going to give you, this is now me going into doing these things in my life, and obviously I'm very active in the health and wellness space, and so I just want to preface this that I don't care what you look like. I'm not talking about aesthetics. I'm not talking about being Captain America and Wonder Woman, right? But I'm talking about being productive and being to wake up every day and work at your highest capacity. Because I think we would all say that in some level we live underneath what we're really capable of. Is that fair? Okay. And so there's been 5 things in my life and things that I try and build a culture around inside of our organizations that if we can do these things outside of the business, everything inside will take care of itself and be more productive. So if you want to dominate, you got to own your life, which is why at the beginning I had you split it into personal and work life so that we can figure out how to integrate those two. Has anybody ever felt like in their own life when it's chaos at work too? Super hard, right? Maybe you've known that coworker who you know is going through a divorce. Hard things happen. And some of those things we can't control, but it starts to affect them in work, right? Here's 5 keys that I think have helped me be as dominant as I want to be in the spaces that I'm in and will continue to help you. 1 is sleep. Sleep is important. And we get sometimes in this entrepreneurial 2020 grind that nobody cares about sleep, right? I've seen a thing circulate about Elon Musk that if you just don't sleep and you work 90 hours a week, you get more done, and that's probably true. But I would say that most of us don't work at the capacity of Elon Musk and maybe don't want to. And so getting the sleep in and making sure that you're well rested. I know for myself that I need about 7 hours of sleep every night to work at my highest potential. And if I'll go nights where sometimes I'm getting 3 or 4 because I have a lot to get done, I can only do that for 2 days. Because after 2 days, my anxiety rises really, really high and I start to crash. And it's pretty ugly. And so once I start to see these guardrails for myself, I know some people that need 5. My wife needs like 10. She would say this if she was here. If she sleeps 9 to 10 hours a night, that's where she works her best. Okay, so find it what it is for you. Second, exercise. Again, I'm not talking about being Captain America. I'm just talking about moving, right? There's a lot of stuff that goes in there, science, that I won't bore you with, but if you can just exercise, move, get a little bit of a sweat on, you'll be more productive in every area of your life. Eat well. Coronavirus. I'm getting over a cold. I don't have coronavirus. I promise. But the people that are, is this a problem in our world right now? It's a huge problem, right? I'm not worried that I'm going to die from coronavirus, right? And I think that empowers me to know that I'm going to travel to Puerto Rico tomorrow and I may get coronavirus, but it's going to be okay, right? And so living healthy, having these habits, eating well, ends you putting that, heaven forbid, coronavirus comes and attacks Cedar City, that we're going to be all right. And if in the back of your mind you're thinking, I'm not sure I'm one of those people that are going to survive something like this, that's a problem because you're going to cut your life short and you're going to cut your productivity short. Is that fair? Okay, so that's my how hard I believe in this stuff because I think it's serious and coronavirus just puts an exclamation point on it right now because it'll help you. Okay, last, meditation in whatever form this takes for you. How many people feel stressed in their life? All of us, right? We got work stress, personal life stress. When I say meditation, just find something that helps you management. It might be prayer, right? It might be prayer, it might be meditation. For me, my meditation is a morning walk. I get up in the morning, I take my dog, I go on a walk, I have no music. That 10 minutes for me is one of the clearest in my head and then in the shower. Those 2 things, okay? I can't sit still. You've noticed I'm all over the place up here, right? I can't sit still, so for me, sitting there like this, I make it 5 seconds before I'm done, right? So find something that works for you. And then lastly, this is an exercise that I do every single day that has fundamentally changed the way I think, the way I achieve, and those that do it consistently. And so, top 10 is this. I was taught this by a mentor about 4 years ago. He taught it to me. And he said, I've been doing this every day for 5 years and I've achieved everything on this list over and over and over again. And so the top 10 is every morning you wake up and you write down the top 10 things that you want to achieve over whatever time frame, and I want you to be as big as possible. Dream. I teach adjunct at the university, and I asked this girl the other day, what's your dream car? 21-year-old, married, has 1 kid. What's your dream car? She paused for a second. She was like, a minivan. BS. That's not your dream car. And she was like, yeah, I just want a white minivan. I was like, that's crap. That is not your dream car. You have to dream bigger than that. Because if that's your dream car, I've got a problem and I've failed you as a teacher. What's your real dream car? And she wouldn't say it, and it was driving me nuts. So I finally threw my pen at her. I did, softly, but I was like, I have a good relationship. I was like, hey, what's your dream car? What is it really? And she took it and she was like, okay, I want a gray Mercedes G-Wagon. That's what I want. It's like, great, that's your dream. It is okay to dream. And too many times in life, we cut ourselves short. Great, she can go get a minivan tomorrow. She's probably not gonna be able to go get a G-Wagon tomorrow. And I don't care if she ever does. But you start cutting yourself short about what you can achieve when you start having the minivan be the end goal. And so in your top 10, when you write these down, I want you to be as big as possible. And I really want you to think of what do you achieve if you could achieve everything and there's no barriers in your mind by money, time, health, and go start to achieve them. I learned this. I started doing it. I wrote it down the first time. He said, I want you to do what you're going to accomplish in the next 10 years. So I did that 4 years ago. I've now accomplished 9 of the original 10 things. So in 4 years, I took what I thought was going to take me 10 years to achieve and what was crazy to be doing it in 4 years. I took this to our team at the gym. We did a retreat up in Park City, took it to them. Within 6 months, 4 was the lowest number of things that have been checked off the list from those 5 people. And so there's power in putting things out there every single day and having them top of mind so you can go achieve it. So I want to end today. I want you guys to make your list of top 10 things that you want to accomplish in your life. Right now, it might take you 1 to 2 minutes. In the morning, it takes me about 30 seconds a day now because I just know what they are and I do it repetitively. And then things just start to happen. So take the next 2 minutes, write down your top 10, and that is how we will end out the day.
All right. Can we all give Will an applause?